So, the Artifact 2.0 beta has been going for a little while. I only recently actually got into the 2.0 beta myself. And you can see I played a little bit of it here. I've sped a lot of the game up to try to make things go a little faster, just so you can see sort of a whole match during the course of this video. And to be honest, my impressions of it have left me a little confused. It has a lot of the elements from Artifact that I like, but if you play this new hero draft mode that they've developed, honestly, it's missing the most interesting part to me, which was constructing decks and trying to see how well certain ideas worked. That was honestly where all the fun came from for me. With this, it just is a matter of trying to pick heroes that both have abilities and are themselves with whatever abilities that they have on the heroes, like because you get a card and you also get the abilities that the heroes come with, that will themselves hopefully be enough to carry you to victory. The rest of the cards that happen to show up in your deck for the most part don't really matter all that much. You also don't typically see the high power cards that were sort of like the linchpins of the older decks, right? Because the older decks would do things like there was that one mono black deck that would try to abuse the gold system to get an exceptionally large amount of gold very early, and then use it to buy really, really expensive items that would cause it to then win the game. And if you were able to disrupt that, you'd beat it. And then the other thing that you know, what happened is you'd have these big cards that had big effects, and some of them are still in the game because there still is a constructed mode. But there's no way for me to acquire cards if I want to acquire them. Sorry, my dog's walking around. He's making a lot of noise. But there's no way to acquire cards if I want to acquire them, so I can't build the decks that I want. And in the 2.0 beta, you know, it's not clear how they want progression to work. I honestly don't really know. And you can get packs by leveling up, which you do just by playing games. But honestly, that's like really slow and tedious, and I really don't have time for that. Like I liked the old Artifact because I was able to just get all the cards that I wanted, and yeah, it cost a bunch of money, I guess, but like it's cheaper than getting all the cards I want in Magic Arena or in Hearthstone or in like any of these other online trading card games. So, you know, to me personally, I never really understood the complaint that people had about the economy system for that game. Like, the only way it could have been better is if they just gave me all the cards up front, which is kind of what I wish they'd do at this point. Because this hero draft mode, like, I mean, it's interesting in the sense that, you know, it's sort of a fair way to play the game, right? You both get to pick from the same sets of heroes, and it's random what heroes show up, so ostensibly at the outset it's fair, right? It's not going to be like each of you has developed your own decks or copied decks from somewhere online, and then based on what decks you have to play with, like one of you might already be at a disadvantage, the other one is more skillful at constructing decks, or is just, you know, downloaded decks essentially, download deck lists and put them into their game. But I just don't know that really matters that much. And honestly, like, I always thought that the reason that this game wasn't as successful as it, like, as I guess Valve wanted it to be was because, honestly, this is like too complicated of a game to be easily accessible, it feels like. You know, you're literally playing 3 matches simultaneously, even in this new version of the game. It's just too much to keep track of. Also, I'm not really sure what the purpose of all this is, right? Because originally I had thought that maybe Artifact was a way for people to learn about the mechanics of Dota in like a simpler format, you know, like a non-real-time style format, so that they could understand like the overarching strategy of the game maybe, and they were going to try to translate that into a card game. But that's plainly not what they've decided to do. So you know, at that point, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here, because this game is like, it's interesting and it's kind of fun, but it's not like it's particularly short. And I'm just not sure what's like A lot of the stuff that they've removed was the stuff that I sort of found fun in the previous game. One thing I'm glad isn't here is that you can't like actively taunt your opponent in game, because they added that in the middle of Artifact 1.0 because people said that there wasn't enough ways to sort of build a community in the game. And I mean, I guess that is true, but like all it did was frustrate me, because like, you know, sometimes you'd have a bad start and you'd be losing, and then someone would start having their characters taunt you, and it's just like, what? Why? You know, I don't know. I understand that the new item system, Helm of the Dominator, is like crushingly good right now, because it sort of makes it so that having high-end monsters to play is basically irrelevant, because they're just going to steal them. So now you both have to play Helm of the Dominator in your decks and all this kind of stuff. If you just don't have the card, then I guess that you're out of luck. I don't know. I haven't checked to see if you can get cards for Artifact 2.0 on the market. I assumed that you couldn't, since that was such a major complaint. But I guess it might be possible. And, you know, sort of in general, like, I just don't... I don't see why you would relaunch the game if this is the amount of change that you're going to create. Because really this is just the same game, more or less. Like, there's not enough differences here for me to really think of this as a relaunch. This is like... Yeah, they simplified things a little bit, but I honestly, like, to me that's not... to me, the original game was more fun than this. And I'm not really interested in, like, if they decide that they want to go with some sort of system where I have to buy packs or something to get cards and I can't trade for them on the marketplace, where eventually they became reasonable prices, and that would have happened regardless the longer people played. I decided I was willing to pay a premium for the cards in order to get them sooner. But like, as people played more and more, like, more and more cards would enter into the marketplace, and prices were already coming down. Them patching the cards also, you know, like, destroyed whatever value that most of the cards might have had. Especially since there was no way to go back and play with the older cards in any mode, like, even if you wanted to. But yeah, like, I kind of feel like, you know, if they're gonna do this, they might as well try to include the mechanics that are sort of critical in the game of Dota itself, because that's what ostensibly this is all based on. And in that case, you know, there's, like, movement speed's like a critical mechanic. How quickly things move, like, determines whether or not sometimes you can be caught at all. The gold resources are in the regular game aren't shared across the whole team. There were times when you could give items to your allies and they would work just like regular items, like way back in the day in Warcraft 3. But it's been a very long time since you've been able to do that, or like even do very much that's even similar to it, with the exception of some consumables that are themselves limited. And you know, the whole reason for that is because it's like it results in unfun game mechanics where you're able to pull all of your resources onto a single character and then just win that lane outright. And, you know, that's what you can do here. The towers, they don't attack you. There's no concept of creep aggro. There's no real, like, reason to... Like, realistically, if I wanted to, if I could deploy all 5 heroes at the start, I probably would just completely neglect one lane. Right? Especially if you get to deploy them in order like you do now. I would probably just ignore one lane completely, because you're gonna lose one of the lanes pretty much guaranteed regardless. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of potential with the ideas that they've been put together for this game, but there's not a whole lot being like done here to really make me like want to put in the time that I put in for the first Artifact game, especially considering that, like, you know, the part that I like the most I can't really do because I don't know how to acquire cards in this. Like, you can see I'm opening a pack here because I leveled up, but I'm not going to grind through a whole bunch of this hero draft mode to level up. And, like, I'm not going to play constructed with mediocre decks at this point to level up either. So, you know, well, hopefully things improve. You know, uh, if you if you want to hear more about my thoughts on this game, especially as things develop, uh, like, comment, and subscribe, and I guess uh, interact with the creators of this game on Discord. If you have access to the beta, you know, they're really interested in hearing everyone's feedback. So be sure to use this opportunity to give it to them. It does really not seem like this is going to change that much, though. This does look to me kind of like, as far as the game is going to go, I can't really imagine them doing any of the sort of drastic changes that I was describing. Like, for example, in order to make movement more important in this game, I feel like you'd need to have, like, multiple rows where cards could exist, and maybe, like, there's just all sorts of things that you'd have to do to make it sort of make sense to have that much movement in this game. And at that point, you're getting really close to just playing a much more complicated version of auto chess, which to me would be fine. That sounds like an interesting enough game, but it's just not what's here, right? That's not what they made here. That wasn't what they were intending to make, I don't think. And so I just don't know where all this is supposed to go. But yeah, thanks for tuning in.